Then they took us in another, Dr. Malhotra had to take us in another room, and he said, guys, I just want to tell you something. He said, Grayson suffered a stroke during the surgery. He said one of those blood clots broke off and went to her brain. And he said, I just need to prepare you because she could be a vegetable. And he said, we don't know that yet, but he said if she is, she will be taken off the list for a heart. You know, she's no longer a viable candidate. That night, I remember we got a Hilton or something with our Hilton points, and we got to the hospital, and it was late on a Saturday night. And now this hospital was older than Arnold Palmer. Arnold Palmer was like, you stick your hand under the hand sanitizer, and woo, everything's so clean, you know. And this is a little like an older car, maybe, but with a real good engine. Because Shan kicks butt. I mean, they're amazing. But we didn't know that then, and so we were kind of like, oh, you know, we're away from home.
Where are you?
We're tired. It's late at night.
Did you have your boys with you?
No,
okay,
no.
They were with Grandma and Papa.
Yep. And which was such a blessing. They live 5 minutes from us. So but that first night we sat outside in the waiting room there for several hours because they had to get Grayson settled. And so they had to switch. They had to switch her over to their ECMO machine and the way they do things, which was extremely dangerous. And but our team came out and greeted us, and 3 doctors: Dr. Fricker, the pediatric cardiologist; Dr. Wise Eyes, Dr. Blywise, Grayson called him Wise Eyes.
Yeah, he calls him Wise Eyes.
Blywise, and then Dr. Malhotra, and they were so sweet, and they really just wanted to gather all the information we could give them about the situation, how it started, you know, weeks prior, etc., what was going on, and you know, later again we found out that when they saw her that night, she was one of the sickest children they'd ever seen, they said, and Dr. Blywise, the surgeon, was the one who had to make the call. Was she too sick to try to get the Berlin heart?
No.
Yeah. But he said, we are getting that Berlin heart, and we are going to give this little girl
a chance.
And
thank God.
I know. He had a daughter, and Grayson reminded him of his daughter. She was older than Grayson, but
that's
something
a
about,
blessing. That's like God's grace and mercy.
And of course, it was part of God's plan, you know, but he had to go to Berlin Bob, the Berlin folks, and say, I want this machine and I want it ASAP. And then to the president of the hospital and say, here's why we're getting this.
Because, so he had to champion this.
That's right. Because Grayson was his 4th case with this machine. The first little boy did pass. The second boy was on this machine at Shands for 1 year, waiting for a heart, but surviving because of the machine. And then Michaela was the next patient, and she was there 8 months waiting, hooked to this machine. And so Grayson was his 4th case.
Did they get hearts?
Yeah, they did. They got hearts. Yep, they transplanted. And they were both sick from birth, you know, so they'd been waiting, you know, and not on the Berlin heart all that time, but they'd been very sickly children. And of course, Grayson's, this was just out of the blue thing. And so he got the Berlin heart, and a couple days later, you know, it was about an 11-hour procedure, open heart, you know, surgery. And we had so many people praying. And now, mind you, we were at First Baptist Orlando, which is a massive church.
Huge church.
And on Christmas Eve, there's even more people.
Right.
So our pastor had announced it during all the services because Grayson was at the hospital.
Yes.
So we already had thousands upon thousands of people praying.
Thank God.
Every prayer makes a difference, and not one goes unheard. You know, so if I meet someone today, like sometimes I'll meet people and they'll be like, Den Beston, what, your name sounds so, and they'll say, I prayed for your daughter because a Bible study across town learned about it.
No way.
And I look them in the eye and I say, thank you. Thank you so much that you prayed for my daughter.
So when I was going through postpartum, God really opened my eyes to the power of prayer. It saved my life. It really did, because I was just in such a dire place. It wasn't something I had control over, but I joined a Moms in Prayer group, and I'm in 2 now, and we pray for people we don't know all the time. I mean, someone will message and we all stop what we're doing and we pray for those people. And it's just, I think it's so beautiful for you to say that all of these people and part of God's story were praying for Grayson, and no prayer goes unheard, and just how important prayer is in our lives, right?
So important.
Because doesn't the Bible say what two people agree upon on earth is done in heaven?
That's right.
So,
it's so powerful. We should never undermine the power of prayer. And I think we do accidentally.
I think
sometimes
so
we don't know what to
too.
pray. Sometimes I didn't know. I didn't have the energy to pray.
I didn't really
know what to pray.
understand it. Like,
Yeah.
I think you go through seasons maybe in life where you're open to that, like
Yeah.
the power of it and
he's
your
teaching us.
story, you know.
Yeah. And he's teaching you, like, through your struggle there with postpartum, he taught you so much. Look what he taught
Really?
you just about prayer. You know, he's always teaching us something in the valley. Always. And then we get to use it when we get up on the
And
mountain
you're
again.
like, wow.
And then another valley comes, and that's okay because we're learning. But yeah, so they
people
did that
stop you and
surgery.
say,
Yeah, people will, and it's incredible, and I always want to thank them, always. But during that surgery, you know, they came out and said Grayson will definitely need a heart transplant. So, you know, we were still sort of thinking maybe
during putting her on the Berlin.
on the Berlin heart, and they do call it a bridge to transplant. So it's a machine that allows you to stay alive. It's specifically for children. There have always been assist devices for adults to live on while they're waiting, and sometimes you can go home with them and stuff. They're battery powered, but for whatever reason, for all these years, there were none for children, and so children were dying prior to the Berlin heart.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a miraculous device, and
Wow.
so they came out and told us that, and they said she will 100% need a heart transplant, and so everybody gathered. And we just prayed for the family, you know, that was going to lose a child. That meant that a family was going to lose a child so that my child could live. I mean, there's no other way around that, right? So
That's so hard to process.
whew, so we prayed for that family, whoever that was going to be. We just prayed, you know, and gathered around for them. And so a few hours later, because I was kind of in the middle of the surgery, a few hours later, they came and said, the surgery's done. Would you like to come? They're going to bring Grayson up, you know, to the 10th floor from the 2nd floor and meet at the elevator. And we said, of course. And so Chris and I walk over. And this was profound because the elevator doors open. And I mean, there's a team and everybody's in their scrubs and they're moving her bed and they're, you know, and we're kind of standing there in the area. And then they get her straightened out. And then there's this guy in scrubs still, and he's over here with this thing on wheels, the Berlin heart machine. And he's pushing it as they're pushing the bed. He's pushing it. And I thought to myself, I went, oh, that's now what is keeping my daughter alive. That thing that he's pushing is attached to her and has to be plugged in to a wall, and that's keeping her alive. And it was just like
Such a,
like, oh my goodness, you know, just seeing it and just you just saw how real it was, you know. And so they got her back to the room and got everything situated, and then they took us in another, Dr. Malhotra had to take us in another room, and he said, guys, I just want to tell you something. He said, Grayson suffered a stroke during the surgery. He said one of those blood clots broke off and went to her brain. And he said, I just need to prepare you because she could be a vegetable. And he said, we don't know that yet, but he said if she is, she will be taken off the list for a heart. You know, she's no longer a viable candidate. And in that room, again, poor Dr. Malhotra was so heartbroken to give us this news. But there was the Lord again, right?
He just spoke through you?
Through me. I said, oh my goodness. I said, I'm so sorry you have to tell us this. And I said, I just want you to know Grayson is going to be okay.
No
And
way.
he probably, I remember my husband's like, oh my goodness, you know, but it was nothing.
Wow.
It was not 1 ounce of me. It was
Wow.
all the Lord just speaking
Because
right
were
through
you
me.
always like, is that like your character, or
No,
that's
I probably would have
God?
been like, oh my gosh, like, no, it was 1,000%.
Just, for sure.
The voice of the Lord and just the peace that He'd given me on Christmas
That you
Day.
were just like, I'm sorry you're upset, but she's going to be okay.
That's what I said. I didn't even, it just came out of me because He was so heartbroken to tell us that, because it is horrific to think that. Now, let me just say, we go out of there. It's not like I was like, ha ha, okay. We went out of there and we got back to her room, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. And remember, I told you about that. I had grabbed out of my closet that plaque
Yes.
with Psalm 46:10 on it,
Yes.
which is be still and know that I am God. I had brought it that night. We went home real quick on Christmas in the middle of the night. I grabbed it, brought it to Arnold Palmer, set it at the foot of Grayson's bed, and again, it came with us to Shan's, and I had it over in the windowsill. And so as the next day went through and they started to wean her off of those paralytic meds to see would she indeed be a vegetable.
Because she was like in a coma this whole time.
Totally, for 8 days. So now they're weaning her back, and they're they're doing all these tests, and she's not responding. And after about a day of that, the enemy just came upon me and said, she's never going to know you. She's never going to say mommy.
Was that like an audible type
No,
of thing?
but it was overwhelming.
You heard it.
Oh, almost like He was trying to just pull me down and make me have doubt. Make me doubt what the Lord had already told me, what the Lord had already promised me. And I said to my husband, we just need to pray. And he was feeling it too. And I looked up over and I looked straight at that verse. And we just need to be still and know that He's God. And He's God, and He's capable of anything.
And He already told
He already told us.
He already told you.
And so we just prayed. We just prayed at the foot of Grayson's bed. We just prayed and prayed. And in the name of Jesus, get behind me, Satan. And just focused on being still and allowing the Lord to do His job. And you're sort of, we talk about this a lot after this experience, my husband and I, but when you're at a place where there's literally nothing you can do in your humanness to save your child. There was nothing I could do. There was nothing the doctors were able to do other than put this machine. But other than that, you're literally just sitting at the feet of Jesus. You're forced to sit there because usually we're too busy for that. Usually it's
especially
like, I got
in our
it.
culture,
I got it.
We're so busy. It's
I can do
my
it.
to-do list
Yeah.
is bigger than yours, then
Yeah.
I'm going to get it done quicker.
And also we empower ourselves somehow to be like,
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah.
I can deal with this. I can deal. But it was almost the most beautifully freeing feeling to sit there knowing there was nothing we could do. And that's when you realize, oh my goodness, Jesus is all I need. He's always been all I need. I'm usually too busy, I just think I got it. I'm a mom. No, when it's stripped away real fast, you just sit there and it is oddly a beautiful place to be, because you suddenly realize Jesus has got all this, and I don't need to worry about it. I don't need to try to do it.
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because I just was taken through like such a small, situation where I felt that before I heard your testimony, where I really felt that. I mean, my husband and I were weeping. We didn't know, like, what we were being told was not good, and then it just switched like that. Like, we're good. So, like, but that feeling of that, just, like you're saying, like, sitting at the feet of Christ, like, there's nothing that I can do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, being, like, surrender. It's
Total surrender.
Total surrender.
Yeah. And you're kind of forced into it.
Yeah.
Which in hindsight, of course, is such a lesson. I mean, when you're in it, you're not even realizing it.
If we could, live like, I mean, I think it would be
know.
obviously, like, impossible. But to try to live in that place of, like, I guess it's kind of removing yourself, right, from it, like, and removing yourself from being like the creator and in charge. And
well, and our world kind of teaches us and pours upon us every single day that you've got it, you're capable, you make your own path,
that's like
you
a
do
really
your own
hard
thing.
burden.
Yeah, especially as moms.
And like every choice you make, like you're responsible for, which is true, you know.
Yeah.
But
more like you've got it. You know, the way you think is the way it will go, and it's just
when you're a lot of that.
Yeah,
a lot of like,
that.
You're manifesting.
That's
like a popular thing.
Yes.
Like I hear people say, "Well, manifest this."
Yeah.
Or, your thoughts become things, and like and I know there's truth to being positive, but God's in charge.
He's in charge.
Like regardless of what you think.
He's in charge, and he has a plan, and his timing is always perfect.
He's in charge.
Yeah. And that was sort of, you know, the next phase. So Grayson did respond as they weaned her off finally. And this
is the part of your story where I was like,
I know.
Oh God, I can breathe.
I know. And she was paralyzed on her right side from the stroke. However, because she was so young, a child's brain has so much plasticity that it can recover. So, you know, all of her organs were shut down prior to that surgery.
Yes.
And so as these doctors, these specialty doctors like the liver doctor and the nephrologist, the kidney doctor would enter into Grayson's room, they were completely bewildered that, like the kidney doctor thought she'd have to be on dialysis for the rest of her life. He said, I don't understand this. The liver doctor, her numbers were back total normal. He said, I don't have any answer.
It was like a reality change.
It was insane, yeah. And so I explained this at the thing, but we had this song playing, which Grayson loved, Casting Crowns, Praise You in the Storm, and it was one of her favorite songs. And we had this little CD player in there, and she had not had her breathing tube taken out yet. So she was still, you know, with that in, but her arms, now mind you, she's been in a coma for 8 days and been through hell, her body physically. And so she hears this song, and this was not like her. She wasn't like in church, like, woo, you know, she loved to sing and wrote music and all this, but it wasn't. So, but Praise You in the Storm was on, and she goes, all of a sudden, you know, we're in there, and she goes,
and her arms were paralyzed.
Her arms were shaking, and she just, that's true. She was like, oh, and so she was, as best she could, without being able to speak, just saying. And then as they took her breathing tube out, you know, she was like, Mommy, Daddy, and I love you. And then she started saying, I'm a miracle. I'm a miracle. I'm God's miracle. And
she just started,
and she
like
said,
the first
yes,
words out
the
of
first
her mouth.
words. And she goes, he has a plan for me, and I am on his path. Now, remember when I had said Jeremiah 29:11 right before everything?
Yeah.
And she later told us the reason why back at Arnold Palmer that night when she was crying out and screaming and Chris called me, where are you? And Grayson's calling for you. She said, do you know that I needed Mom there because I knew I was dying, and I wanted you both to be there when I died so I could say goodbye to you. And that's what she felt in that moment. So she knew she was dying, and she wanted us to be there. That's also the time when she was screaming, I'm dying, that she explained later that Jesus came to her. And that's sort of the next chapter.